again with another video, and this one I'm going to be talking about the upcoming Batman Arkham game in the year of 2019 and what villains we would like to see in the game. But first, before we get into it, be sure to leave a thumbs up on this video. Let's try to get this video to 1,000 thumbs up. You absolutely crushed the like goal in my last video. I got 1,000 likes in like an hour and a half or so when I was expecting it to take a couple days if it would get there at all. So you guys are crushing it on the channel recently and supporting the daily uploads. I really appreciate it a bunch. So let's keep that momentum going and get this video to 1,000 likes as well, talking about the Batman villains for this upcoming game. So I wanted to poll everybody about what villains we would like to see besides the Court of Owls. So my poll had over 2,000 votes, 400 comments, ton of responses, and unfortunately I just couldn't read them all. My plan was to read all of them, but the video would take forever. Maybe I'll do it at some point, but unfortunately today I don't have time to record it all. So I compiled the 10 best ideas. So I want to talk about why I think they are the best ideas and that kind of thing. So first, let's look at the overall results, and very interestingly, you will see right away, people will always say, hey, I'm sick of the Joker. No more Joker in the movies, no more Joker in my games, no more comics, we've seen him too much. And somebody commented in here, they actually voted, and they said, I know that people are sick of the Joker or don't like the Joker, and people don't dislike the Joker. I know that's a double negative, but people like the Joker a lot. People feel that he's overused. Those are two very different distinctions, okay? And people feel like the Joker is overused. But anyway, that's a side note. Even if people feel that, he still got the most votes. And there's a lot of people saying, yeah, he kind of has been overused, but I still love the character. And the fact of it is, it speaks to the Joker's resonance with people as the most iconic and best, in my opinion, entertainment supervillain ever created in the history of entertainment. But anyway, let's get into the rest of the votes. Mr. Freeze, 9%, pretty low, lower than I was expecting and kind of hoping because I love the character. Hush got a huge vote. People love Hush. Ra's al Ghul, 16%, and other 17%. So the Joker did not get the majority, but he did get a lot of votes. So let's look at some of my favorite responses. So first of all, this was one of the first responses I got from M. He said, Deathstroke for real this time. So I understand what this guy's saying. They kind of copped us out in the past, and they baited us in Arkham Knight. He had a tank boss battle. Arkham Origins, he was in the game for a little bit, but there were so many villains in that game it was hard to balance. So people really want him to be the main villain of the game, and he's a great character. If you really build upon his involvement, his daughter's involvement as well, with other organizations like the Teen Titans and his linkage to all those different parts of the DC universe, Lex Luthor in some cases, that would be very interesting. So they could definitely go that route. I'm all for that. M with the Squidward emoji, I like it. So Luke said this, I think having a mysterious villain, like in The Long Halloween, would be great. I totally agree here. So basically he just goes on to say, where you don't know who the main villain is, you have to investigate stuff. I love the idea of a Batman game that is a detective game at heart. Now, we're still going to have the great Arkham combat, we're still going to have great action and thrilling moments, but just building upon a little bit of those detective beats that we've had in prior games, but kind of in a very limited sense. You know, in Arkham Origins, we had that scene where you're breaking down the scene, the crime scene, but really you're just holding X and the game is telling you what happened. I'm thinking more of a real crime scene investigation type mode where you really have to figure it out, and it might take 30 minutes per crime scene, and that would add length to the game as well. Hopefully not in a negative way. They can make it engaging and interesting. It just really depends how they do it, but I think that they could do that very well, and I love the idea of having a whodunit game. They tried it with Arkham Knight. They tried to have that secret reveal, and it worked a little bit, but not super well, just because it was a little predictable. But anyway, so that would be incredible. I mean, dude, The Long Halloween, in case you don't know, it's a murder mystery and we don't know who did it. So you're trying to figure it out. That's the whole point of the book. To have something like that where we truly don't know which villain is committing all these crimes. And the thing about it is this, is that you have so many options. And you could put 10 out on the table of these obscure villains. And that's what so many people commented. People commented, I want this obscure villain, Kite Man, Condiment King. Some people saying it as a joke, but some people being serious. So you could lay out, okay, here's 10 to 12 villains we know, but one of them is doing all of this shit. And they're, tying the Court of Owls, but you're really trying to figure out who done it. And I love Luke's idea. It's so, so good. The next idea from John Doe, he was talking about the war of jokes and riddles. So this would be including the Joker, so add that to the 30% of somebody wanting the Joker, but also having the Riddler. And you could mix the Court of Owls in here, mediating the conflict or trying to resolve it as well, along with Batman. Not saying that they're allies, but they both have the same goal and different ways of attaining that. So I could totally see that. I love the idea of Joker and the Riddler fighting, We saw that a little bit in Arkham City, not too much, but Arkham City, the whole plot is that all the villains are warring against one another, right? Kind of worked out that way, kind of didn't, because they team up at the end a little bit. Anyway, side note. So I really like this idea. I love the idea that Batman, instead of instigating conflict, he's actually trying to mediate it. He's trying to bring it down and break up the fight, and not necessarily beat anybody up, but just stop the fighting. So I like that idea as well. Very good idea from John Doe. The next idea from Thomas Robinson is the Judge. So this is a older Harvey Dent, where he's not the DA, but rather he is, like Thomas said here, the Judge. Okay, so this is an older version of Harvey Dent. The problem being the timeline. We think this is going to be an Arkham Origins sequel. So I don't know if that would work, but I do love what he said at the end. This is why I included it. The idea of including the Court of Owls with this. So the Court of Owls is an aristocratic, very wealthy, bureaucratic type organization. They're very organized, very synchronized. They have a lot of money, a lot of influence in Gotham, right? That sort of trust fund money, that behind the scenes type money that you don't really see. And it's not like cash money. It's like, I own all this shit, right? So that kind of money is what the Court of Owls have, and that political influence too. So I love the idea of the Court of Owls influencing Harvey Dent and sort of buying him out maybe, or influencing him in other ways. That is all very interesting to me. Thomas, you have a great idea. I love the idea of including Harvey Dent as a judge in the game, and the Court of Owls and Harvey Dent working together to corrupt Gotham, and Batman fighting not just thugs and beating them all up, beating up a bunch of people, but fighting this political influence. And from there, you include something that I've always wanted to see in the Batman Arkham games, that we only saw at the very beginning of Batman Arkham City, and that is, of course, the fighting between Bruce Wayne and the city of Gotham, Hugo Strange, the politics, Mayor Quincy Sharp in Arkham City, Warden Quincy Sharp in Arkham Asylum, and in case you don't know, he becomes the mayor in Arkham City. But anyway, all of that would be very interesting to see how Bruce Wayne, how we get into the shoes, the coat and tie of the businessman, billionaire, trying to battle this, use his influence to counteract the Court of Owls, who has way more money and influence, by the way, because they're a secret society, right? So anyway, very, very interesting. I love the Court of Owls. They're a great organization. They're going to be great for the game, and I love that secrecy type elements that they could introduce here. I love it. On Mensch said, I would like to see James Gordon Jr. I love it, bro. I mean, the Batgirl New 52 run is seminal in my view. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite comic runs of all time. It's what made Barbara Gordon my favorite comic book character ever. So I would love to see it, because in case you don't know, James Gordon Jr., he's depicted as a psychopath in the comics, maybe a sociopath, not sure which one. And he is definitely, a very interesting villain, and I would call him a villain. It's a strong word, but I would say that he is one. And especially if you have Barbara Gordon in the game and Jim Gordon. They have this relationship where they obviously love the kid because it's their family, but he does a lot of bad shit. And it creates a dilemma, as you can imagine, for Jim Gordon, who's trying to think, well, do I take this guy out, this guy being my son, or, what do I do? So it creates that moral dilemma and ambiguity, which would be very interesting, especially if you have Barbara Gordon in the game. And that's how it's pitched in Volume 3 of Gail Simone's New 52 seminal Batgirl run. So definitely go that route. I love it. Ventriloquist, absolutely. Side mission. Not as the main villain, so I disagree with him in that sense, because I don't think he can really carry the main role of a game, but he can definitely do a side mission. Also the Ventriloquist in Batgirl New 52, by the way. So I love those ideas. I think they're great. Marius posted the Condiment King. Come on, it's the only choice. And I think this Marius, I don't know if it's a male or female, and this person probably has their child as the picture here. I don't imagine that 2-year-old wrote this post, but anyway, I think that Marius he or she is right in saying the Condiment King, and I think he or she is saying it as a joke here, but it is interesting because it's a really cool villain. It can be a quirky side mission. So, the poll posed it as, well, who do you want to be the main other side mission besides the Court of Owls, or the main villain besides the Court of Owls? I don't know if I would put Condiment King there, but I want him in the game. I mean, that would be really interesting. A quirky, fun, goofy side mission. Pitch it kind of like Professor Pig, where it's not like the main thing that you're doing, but it's a quirky, fun little side mission, and I would really love to see that. Oscar-worthy Film says, Hush, a great setup in Arkham City with no payoff. So Arkham Knight, I really loved the Hush side mission in Arkham Knight. It was one of my biggest surprises from the game, and the only problem is that he wasn't in it very long, but I loved the shock of it. I didn't expect it, and I gotta give Rocksteady that. So I like that Arkham Knight twist way more than most people. However, he says Hush is the best Batman story. It's a great story. Batman Hush is a great great story. In case you don't know, Thomas and Bruce Wayne were great friends. Tommy Elliott, as the Hush, were great childhood friends, and they sort of grew apart, blah, 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 skipping a couple decades, and they become enemies later on. So it's very, very interesting. I highly recommend that you read that graphic novel. I'll leave a link in the description below if I can remember. It's probably on Amazon. And I really recommend it if you haven't tried it. So it's an interesting story arc, and I definitely like his idea. So now we're going to Mr. Potato here. And Mr. Potato says the Joker Harley Quinn. I'm always a Joker fan, and I can't get enough. And I totally agree with you. I love the character of the Joker. I think that he should be in the game. Not only that, I think he should have a substantial role in it. The problem with the Joker is that he's so iconic, so great. You can't have him as a side villain. In Arkham Origins, they said, we're going to have the Joker as a side villain. And, of course, no, he was the main villain of the game. So it's really hard because he's so charismatic and iconic and all those things. You can't have him sidelined to the Court of Owls, which was created less than a decade ago. They're newbies. It's not even a real villain yet, okay? So that's a problem, and Arkham Origins got a lot of backlash for that reveal, that surprise reveal. A lot of people didn't like it, thought it was cheap, and that, I think, really drove a lot of the disdain for the Joker in the Arkham franchise. And then Arkham Knight came out, and they did kind of the same thing, where they baited us and no, the Joker's not in it, he's dead. And, of course, he was the main villain in that game, too. But this leads me to my next point. The Joker is, true and true, the main villain of the Batman Arkham games. And I would go so far as to say the Batman Arkham games is not a series about Batman defeating evil, per se, or his villains that they throw at him in each game, but it's about the duality of Batman and the Joker, their ideological differences, and that the way they corrupt one another, all of that stuff. The Joker is the main villain of every single Batman Arkham game, including Arkham Knight, which he's dead for. So this begs the question, the Joker haunts Batman so deeply that he's so intrinsically defined in the Batman Arkhamverse, and he's such an important seminal character to the Batman Arkhamverse, it'd be very hard to exclude him. And in many ways, like I said, the Batman Arkham games, more than anything else, are about the relationship between Batman and the Joker. And not to say you can't change that, but you would be changing the true identity of the Batman Arkham games. I think that it's time to do so just because we've had so many games, but that doesn't mean that you can go cold turkey. It's like when you're drinking 4 sodas a day and then you stop drinking it. Guess what? You're going to withdraw and feel terrible. It's the same way. Fans are going to freak out if you go from the Joker being the main villain in every single Batman Arkham game, and you have all these fans that grew up with this relationship and the Joker being the main villain, and then one day just he's not there at all and there's no explanation. He's not in the game even as a side mission. People will get withdrawals, like Mr. Potato here, okay? So I think that that's a real concern, and my analogy is kind of goofy, but it works. It does make a lot of sense to me. This notion that you can't just have the Joker be so important to this universe, this franchise, and the Arkhamverse, and then just nowhere to be seen. We're doing the Court of Owls, and we're not explaining why the Joker's not here. So I think that you have to do the Joker, and I agree with Mr. Potato here full-heartedly. Sergeant Skydiver, great support of the channel. Thank you so much. Killer Moth, also another great Batgirl villain, and also a early Batman villain. So if you could incorporate Batman and the Court of Owls, Killer Moth, and of course Batgirl and Robin, that would be a great choice as well. I totally agree, Sergeant Skydiver. There was one more that I may have forgotten to screenshot, but that villain... There may have been one. Okay, here it is that I forgot to screenshot. That was from Chris Olive, and he said the Suicide Squad. This was a great idea. I loved it, and here is why. With the Suicide Squad, you could have dual play to the max. So we have Batman, Batgirl, Robin, or Nightwing, whatever, against, not really Amanda Waller, she's not going to be fighting, but you have Killer Croc, right? The Joker, Harley Quinn, maybe, and other non-Batman villains like Captain Boomerang, who's a Flash villain, and other Suicide Squad villains, and you could really amp up the intensity, because the most bosses we fought is like 2 big Bane type characters, the Titans in Arkham Asylum, but they both fight the same way. So imagine being able to switch between Batman, Batgirl, and Robin with different abilities, and then have all these different villains with different abilities that you have to consider. So Killer Croc, obviously, we've kind of fought him before, we know how he acts, but we have other villains with different abilities. Captain Boomerang obviously has his unique abilities, all that kind of stuff. So that would be very, very cool to have that notion of different villains. I would love that. I would love to see the Bat family take on the Suicide Squad in this massive battle. And when I've been thinking about what villains we should have in this game, I've always gone back to which could lead to interesting boss battles, because that's been a shortfall of the Arkham games recently. So when I think about who could deliver a really good boss fight, Talon, who we know is going to be in the game, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome potential. Deathstroke is another idea that was mentioned. Another great idea. Okay? The Suicide Squad, an excellent idea, because you have so many villains that you'd be fighting at once that inherently would be way different than anything we've seen in the Batman Arkham game. So those are the main three. Talon, Deathstroke, Suicide Squad, I think have a lot of potential. Others, Condiment King, Kite Man, other wacky villains like that we've never seen before, inherently, just because they're goofy and silly, you're going to have a unique boss battle. So that's what I really think about in terms of what villains we want to see. I really think about what could be interesting, what could freshen up the Batman Arkham games. Not that they need to be freshened up, but just new things that you can add so that each game feels new and fresh. So anyway, guys, I hope you'll have enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure once again to give it a thumbs up. Let's try to get this 1,000 likes. That would be great. Subscribe if you enjoy the Batman Arkham videos, doing them every day. As school starts, we may jump down to 4, 5, 6 videos per week, or I'll stay at 7. It depends on how busy I am. But I'll definitely keep you posted on Twitter about the upload schedule. Just be sure to follow me there. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Slickmoth. See you guys in the next one.